Welcome to World of Marketing Podcast, a Foster Web Marketing production. Here's your host, Tom Foster.
Hey, thank you for coming here to our podcast episode number, I don't know.
You're in the 20s.
Of the World of Marketing.
Yeah, I think you're in the 20s, at least. Maybe you're in the 30s by now. The ones I've been seeing lately are in the 20s.
I don't know if we're 24.
24.
In the World of Marketing. And this is your second visit with us, and thank you for coming. You drove all the way from Richmond, Virginia, up here to Fairfax, from the great south of Virginia, where people are nice, coming up here. So I appreciate that. That's like challenging on many levels.
Yeah, they are nice.
What?
In
Down
Richmond.
in Virginia. I know.
Richmond.
I know. You're nice people down there. Are you from there?
I grew up in a place called Hanover,
Yeah.
Hanover County. Now, people from Richmond will know about that. People from up here in Northern Virginia will know about Hanover. It's basically, for people up north who ask me, I say, do you know where the Eiffel Tower is at King's Dominion? And, oh, yeah, I know where that is. Well, I grew up near there.
That's like King George County, right? Isn't that?
That's Hanover County.
Yeah.
That's Doswell. So I actually grew up.
Doswell, yeah.
Yeah, I grew up in a small town, Mechanicsville, Virginia.
Yeah, Mechanics. That's where
Yes.
Ken Pierce.
Yes.
Ken Pierce
Yeah.
lives in, who used to work for us. You remember Ken?
Yes, I do. Yeah,
Yeah.
so Mechanicsville's hometown. Now, when I went away to college, people ask, okay, where are you from? And you quickly realize, unless you say Richmond, then they don't know where you're talking about. So I started saying I'm from Richmond. So, yes, I'm from Richmond, but I grew up in Hanover County, Mechanicsville. Parents were, they worked in the school system there. My dad was the principal of the local school. My mom was a home ec teacher at the high school, which basically meant that if I got in trouble,
everyone knew.
They knew it before I even knew it.
Yeah.
And there was one time I was called to the principal's office in elementary school, and my dad, who was good friends with that principal, I think he knew I was going to the principal's office before I went to the principal's office. So.
That was Thomas's plight too, growing up. His mom's the teacher.
Yeah.
At the school, and that's kind of the case with all the kids. So there's always like the special, because the worst is getting in trouble and embarrassing their mother. That's the worst crime you could commit. Right. So do you have any brothers or sisters?
I have a younger sister. She is thankfully back in Richmond. She has spent the last 10 to 15 years moving around a lot because her husband was in the military.
Ah, right.
So
she's back. Good.
Yes, he just retired from the military, and so now they're back in the Richmond area.
What branch?
He was in the Army.
Okay.
So
it's okay. Army's okay.
Yeah, and he did lots of time overseas, and
thank you for your service.
Yes.
And what is his name?
His name is Boa. That's what we call
Boa?
him. Yeah, Boa.
That's a pretty cool name.
Yes, it is. Abubakar is the full name.
Boa Bubakar?
Abubakar. So,
wow.
Yes,
We're getting off track with this podcast.
Well, that's okay. That's okay.
But it is about you.
Yeah.
And so where did you go to school? Where did you go to college?
So undergrad, Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
Law school at the University of Virginia.
Yeah.
That's an odd combination. And if you know anything about that relationship, those two schools, it's like the Hatfields and McCoys. So when I left Tech and went to UVA for law school, all my Tech friends
disowned you,
even though Virginia is like top 5 law school in the country. Were like, "What are you doing? That's that's crazy. You can't go there." And so to make them understand, I said, what happened was I was storming the field at Scott Stadium after a football victory up there when Tech beat them, and they caught me and held me prisoner of war here. and so I'm just being held prisoner of war. I thought I'd get a law degree while I'm here. And the Tech fans were like, I get it now. Yeah, I get it. I understand now.
Under duress.
Yeah. Now the UVA fans, one thing I learned really quickly is that nobody liked me. I mean, the UVA people at law school were like, "Yeah, you went to Tech. We're not sure about you." And then the Tech friends were like, "Why did you go to UVA?" So for a while there, I was walking a really funny line, but everybody understands. And in all seriousness, I'm glad I went to both schools and had the opportunity. Both of them have unique things about them, but two great schools. I loved going to both places. I love Blacksburg, I love Charlottesville.
It's a great area.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's a great area.
Yeah, those were the good old days.
Good old days.
Yeah.
Well, and those friends that scoffed at you, maybe they don't know about this big giant case that you just settled, and that's kind of the topic of this conversation.
Yeah, sure.
Because you and I have known each other for many, many years, and we've worked together for many, many years on your marketing and developing you as a brain injury, spinal cord injury, federal court attorney that gets referred a lot of cases. And this was one of those cases that you referred, right?
Yes.
And so we were talking a little bit about, and we don't need to talk about numbers unless you want to, but this was high seven figures.
Yes.
And obviously any lawyer can do some math on that and figure out what your, but it was also a referral to another lawyer that doesn't even do PI.
That's right. Yeah. So it's the case came to me like a lot of cases do. Through a friend, actually, I think
classmate,
law school classmate from UVA. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, he
maybe those Virginia Tech boys should rethink.
Yeah, right. No, you can't. With that relationship and the school allegiances, there's just no love lost. There's nothing to fix there. It is what it is. But no, it was a great example of having a relationship, knowing other referral sources, lawyers who have their own networks of connections and places in the community. And this particular lawyer had a relationship with a certain community in Richmond, namely the disabled community, and the schools and that sort of thing. And that is how the case came, was through that very unique relationship that he had. A young man, in our case, our client, was already disabled, and I would say severely disabled. He had cerebral palsy. He had difficulty ambulating and walking already. He used a wheelchair in many contexts already. And most of his activities of daily living, someone had to help him with them: eating, dressing, toileting, all that sort of thing. And unfortunately, on the day of the incident, he was in a wheelchair in a van that was owned by a company whose job it is to properly operate the van and restrain him and keep him safe in transit. Unfortunately, the driver didn't do what she was supposed to do with restraining his wheelchair. So when they went around a curve, the wheelchair with him in it, and he's a big guy, flipped over, and he hit his head on the wheelchair lift in the van, resulting in not only a mild traumatic brain injury, but also a spinal cord injury. So he went from having a difficult life already to being, even in a more precarious situation. And so it was a really challenging case to separate how he was before from how he was after this accident. He got better after the accident through the sheer determination of his mother, frankly. She took him, out of a rehab facility where he was not getting better, and actually took him home and said, I refuse to believe that he'll never walk again. And she got him back to the point where he could walk. Not as good as before, but a better. And so it was just a complicated case, a very, very challenging case. But those are the ones I love. And
why? Why do you love them?
It may go back to, I guess I get bored easily, but I don't think it would be interesting to me to be doing cases where it's just one after the other, small fender bender cases with soft tissue injuries, and resolve it for a low dollar amount and move on to the next one. And they kind of all start repeating and being I guess uninteresting,
monotonous.
So when I got into the personal injury world, I thought to myself, I would like to do something that's interesting and challenging. And as a former defense lawyer, I knew that the traumatic brain injury area was a challenging one. because the injury is not something you can see. I mean, you could meet someone with a traumatic brain injury and think they're normal. Only by getting into their story, learning how they operate in their daily lives, do you find out that there's an injury there. That's why it's called the hidden injury. So it's a challenge. It's complicated. It's intellectually interesting to me. And it kind of fit with my background also as a commercial litigator, which involves lots of intricate details and things like that in these big commercial cases. So I kind of took those skills, put them together with some of the experiences I'd had as a PI defense lawyer in my earlier years, and tried to create something unique in my new firm, and that is representing people who've suffered a mild traumatic brain injury and bringing that high level of detail and sophistication to these cases. They are different, and they're different in a number of ways. Like I said earlier, it's a hidden injury. It's not like a broken arm. There's no X-ray that's really going to show you if you've got a mild traumatic.
They're complicated. They're difficult.
They are complicated.
They're long.
Lots of experts. I mean, in this case that we just settled, that you're referring to, we had experts in neurosurgery, neurology, physical medicine and rehabilitation, life care planners, plural, economists.
Wow.
And then the other side went out and hired similar experts, and their experts came from as far away as Florida, and there was one doctor they hired at Duke University, for example. So, these cases are complex. A lot's on the table to work with as far as experts go. So there's a lot of heavy lifting in these cases.
And we were talking about this earlier. This is a lot like a medical malpractice case in terms of its difficulty.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And the cost associated
well,
with
that's the other thing I would mention is the expense. I mean, these cases are not cheap to handle. I mean, you got
because of the experts and all the preparation.
Yeah, you got to know who to hire, and you got to know, and you got to be able to finance those cases. And so when I started out this practice, I obviously was not where I wanted to be eventually, and you kind of feel like, and this is true of any new business endeavor, you kind of feel like you're on one side of the Grand Canyon and you want to get to the other, and you got to grow wings. You kind of feel like you need to grow wings to get to the other side, because you don't maybe have the finances or the staff or the experience, if you will, to get where you want to be immediately. And so it can be kind of a daunting feeling. So the way I've approached it over the last 10 years is I started with some smaller cases, had some success, then maybe met a lawyer who invited me to come in and work on a case with him, where I learned more of the substantive side of the cases, got some more great experience, and then eventually I got a bigger case referred to me, and it just is a small step at a time over the last 10 years.
Can we talk about that lawyer?
Sure. Oh, yes. I
mean, because this is a very famous lawyer, right?
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
This is Stephen Smith we're talking about.
Yeah.
Who is the very well-known Brain Injury Law Center.
Sure.
Lawyer that has pretty much gotten referrals nationwide from, not worldwide, from lawyers for years and years and years. And he's, I think I can say this, he's pretty much picked you as his protege for many of those cases because of your skill and your dependability, and just the fact that you get it done, and plus your federal court.
Sure. So Stephen, probably got to know him about 5 or 6 years ago, and he started to bring me into some of his cases that are going to federal court. Because he
wouldn't do that unless you were good.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that he'd ever call me, protege or anything like that.
He might get mad at me saying that.
But
if he ever listens to this.
I don't know. But all I know is that
he was one of my first clients. So
that's good.
I know you know good. That, but maybe not everybody else knows that.
Yeah, but he's a good
guy.
He's a great guy, and he has developed this national practice in the TBI realm. And historically, he would probably not be as willing to take cases that are going to federal court as he may be now.
Because you can do it.
Because I can help out on those, bring something to the table with federal court practice. And so
how many of these have you done? Like these types
Oh gosh, you're putting me on the spot. But going back, the first one I did with Stephen was in 2014. And before that, we had in my own firm, just on my own, we had 2 or 3 that were smaller TBI cases that were referred directly to me and that resolved for policy limits, meaning the insurance policy's limits, which were fairly lower limits. So we really never got in the weeds with them. Then I had that one case with Stephen in 2014, which was a federal court case. And then I think we've had probably 4 or 5 since then. We've got a couple going on right now with him.
Did you win all of those? You guys win all of them?
No, the first one was a complete disaster.
Oh, wow.
Complete
Thanks
disaster.
for being honest on it.
Yeah, and it was just a tough case that.
Everybody's got those. Right?
Yeah, I think on the damages side of the case, it was a pretty good case. On the liability side of the case, it was a really tough case. It was not a slip and fall case. It was a case of falling merchandise on somebody, and the law is just really tough on those. And as we found out in that case, so not every case is gonna is going to come out
and
good for you.
You don't know that until you dig into it, right? I mean, you got to take a chance sometimes.
You do, and there's risk there.
Are you better now after all these years at recognizing?
Oh yeah. Yes, I've learned.
Would you, if you saw a case like that, first one again, would you be like, "That's not a good case"?
I just saw one like that. I had a lawyer from West Palm Beach, Florida, contact me about perhaps joining up on a very similar case.
How did he find you?
In Florida. I actually met him at I don't know how to describe it, but it's a law firm organization I'm a part of called Atticus.
Yeah, Atticus.
Yeah, and Atticus is like a coaching program for lawyers.
Steve Riley.
Yeah, particularly. Yeah, Steve's a great guy.
We know him. We work with him.
So Steve and his group invited me down for a meeting in early December in Florida. So that's where I met this gentleman from West Palm Beach, and as well as your brother Chad. He was there. Yeah. So
he shows up in all kinds of
crazy
places.
Yeah, I was so glad he was there though, because I didn't know anybody. Yeah. So I'm there.
That was good. Yeah, you guys were texting me.
I was so excited to see Chad. I think I hugged him. Good. Chad, thank God you're here. Yeah, so we had a nice time, but I met this gentleman there, and we talked about this case a little bit, and that conversation continued after that, and it ended up being a case that I think not only did I turn down, but I think I convinced him to turn it down. So certain cases, particularly slip and fall cases, falling merchandise cases, any sort of premises liability case is a real tough case, especially in federal court. Doesn't mean it can't be won, but it's a tough case, as I learned.
But this is the thing is that, and really what we're appealing to a lot of the lawyers listening that don't want these. They don't want or they're just not. It's not their thing. They're either estate planners or criminal, or they just do PI on like what you're talking about, soft tissue or car accidents.
Right.
This is out of their league or out of anything that they would want to do. But obviously they would want to be able to refer this to a capable lawyer because their name is attached to the referral.
Yeah, and I think it's all about them still being the hero to their client. And that's important to me.
Right.
I value that. And I've referred cases to other lawyers before.
And you're careful about that referral.
Yeah,
right?
you're careful about that. You'll make sure they're getting in the right hands. What I've really been focusing on lately is filling that need. So imagine you're in maybe a small town in rural Virginia. Mm-hmm. You dabble in personal injury work, but most of your practice is handling things like divorce,
everything.
Criminal,
if you're in a small town, right?
Yeah, criminal. Yeah. Maybe you serve on the board or something in the local community. You're very involved. You know a lot of people. You're kind of the go-to person in that community. Yeah. So imagine that type of lawyer, and then imagine that there's a significant injury in their community to someone who is connected with them somehow, and they come to that person with that situation. That lawyer, if they're really thinking about it and thinking far ahead, will realize, there are a lot of things that need to be done in this case that I either haven't done before, I'm not equipped to do, I don't have the time to do it, don't have the finances to really build this case the right way. I think of that lawyer right there as kind of my ideal client.
Right.
I'm looking to be available to them to partner up on that case and build it the way it needs to be built. And my practice is totally different. I mean, I typically have one case going to resolution maybe every quarter.
Right.
Just one case.
Yes.
And so that allows me to build what I call bespoke cases. I mean, I focus on it like in the old days, maybe a tailor.
You're in it to win it.
Yeah, maybe a tailor would be hunched over his or her bench, right. Sewing every thread. And that's how I think about how I approach these cases, because that's the dirty little secret is that's how you win them. That's how you maximize the value. You gotta really know that client's story, and that takes time, and it takes effort, and it takes digging. Sometimes your clients, you don't want to talk to that person. They're not going to say anything good about me. No, I really do want to talk to them. And then you talk to that person, and it's a gold mine. I mean,
right.
I've got a case right now, okay, that is going to trial very, very soon. This podcast will probably come out after this case goes to trial. And just recently, I finally insisted upon talking to the client's ex-wife. Give me her number. I want to talk to her. And I talked to her, and she is the best witness. She's now the star witness, because she's going to come in there and just say how the guy was before and how he is now. They still have a good relationship. They've stayed connected.
Right.
But his reaction with the mild traumatic brain injury he's struggling with is, I don't think she's gonna either be willing to do that, or it just was never really something he was interested in. But you really got to dig into the story and find out who they are, what they were like before, what they are now.
And you burn the midnight oil. You've told me many times how you get up early in the morning and you write down the stuff that you're going to be working on for cases and all that stuff.
Yeah, I try not to.
I mean, who doesn't want a lawyer like you? That's really the thing, is that especially for these kinds of cases, like we said, we want somebody, every lawyer wants somebody capable and somebody that's going to assume responsibility and just drive it home and do a fantastic job. And that's what you consistently do over and over again. I've known you for many years, and you've just done a great job with every case that I've known about. And this one, I know how hard you worked on this one.
This was a big one. Took a ton of time.
Yeah.
And a lot of my energy went into it. And I hope to have, obviously, many more like it. I mean,
you've already been paid.
Yeah,
it's done. You paid your referral to the guy that referred it.
Yeah, and that's
2 days before Christmas. You walked in, and
I think he liked seeing me come in just before Christmas to hand him the referral fee check.
The six-figure, almost seven-figure check.
Yeah. So
for what? For saying, "Here, Kevin, here's a good case."
Yeah, here's the case. So that's and that obviously makes me feel really good too, to be able to.
And you helped a client, of course. I mean,
do a good job for the client, do a good job for that lawyer, and everybody comes out satisfied with it, and it makes a difference in everybody's life. So, I really that's kind of my prototypical pattern with these cases. I like to keep my referral sources in the loop as to what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, I've sent cases out before, and it's like a black hole. You don't hear anything back, I mean, for forever. And so what I'm doing now is I'm building a series of systems in my firm based on my experience and my observations of how I and others have handled these cases. I'm building kind of the brain injury litigation system in my firm now. I'm systemizing it. So I'm
writing that down.
Okay, write that down. And actually with Atticus, they're helping me with that, and we've actually put it so those coaching sessions, you always come away with homework and deadlines.
Yeah.
And so by March 31st of this year, my deadline is to have the first working set of systems out just for the brain injury cases in my shop by March 31st. So just to let everybody know, that's how much I'm I guess systemizing what I do in the brain injury cases. There's a lot that goes into them that's repeat stuff, like stuff you got to do.
You got to check the boxes.
Yeah, and so all that's going to be in there. But what I'm talking about when I talk about systems is higher level stuff, more strategy stuff. And have you thought about this? Remember in this other case where you did that and it went really well. So we're really taking it, I think, to a level I've never seen in a law firm. It is creating systems that produce this wonderful trial at the end, including all the strategies that go into it and all the nuances. There's so much nuance there. I mean, from this case I've got right now, I'm now going to have in this system a checkbox: is the client divorced? Have you talked to the ex-wife? Right.
So it's a system that you'll be always updating.
Yeah, and it's not only that, it's something that, when Kevin's maybe not around anymore, I can hand to somebody.
Sure.
Well,
I'm sure that this would get to a point, or at least I would encourage you to teach other lawyers your system.
Yes.
And that's what I would encourage anybody that's listening to this, if they've got a case that they're thinking about, or to call you, at least talk about it. It doesn't cost anything to talk to you about
I love talking to other lawyers and about their cases and helping them out. And I'm a guy who believes that I don't look at the marketplace or what we do or opportunity, or even this country, frankly. I don't look at it as a pie where everybody gets just a little piece of the pie, and if you take a piece,
we all just jump in there and eat that pie together.
Yeah. I mean,
here's your fork, here's mine.
Yeah,
let's go.
What I've learned, what I've learned doing my own thing in my own firm is that there's, for all practical purposes, there's a limitless opportunity to really do great things for you, for your family, for your clients, and if you're helping out another lawyer,
that's your family. That's your
great.
Extended family is the legal community.
Yeah, that's great.
So we've had this. I don't know if it's in the picture. You can't really see it, but we've had this particular exhibit here in front of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I don't know. Can you zoom in, Thomas? Can you do any zooming? So, why don't we go ahead and zoom in on this?
Sure.
A little bit and show, what is this? You brought this all the way from Richmond in a black box.
I did.
And so that is a brain, an example of a brain?
Yeah. I mean, when we're in court, I love props, and I love toys and props, and because they help you tell a story, they help you illustrate things to the jury. This is an example of something we would use in a case. It's an actual life size with weight, texture, everything, model of the skull and the brain. So if you just pop off this magnetic top, this is a gelatinous model of a brain that has the texture of a real brain and the same weight. So with all of the grooves and wrinkles, if you will, and you just you can use this to show juries what I was talking about earlier with this invisible injury. You can actually make it visible.
Show it, yeah.
Yeah, you can show them the bony ridges on the inside of the skull, and how this gelatinous brain, when you hit a tractor trailer head on it, with a force of 60 miles an hour, you can show them how that really could hurt the brain in this hard skull. And so this is just an example of one of the exhibits we would use. You want to hold it?
Over here.
Absolutely. All right. Be careful.
Brain.
This is a brain.
Yeah. Oh, see.
Okay. Yeah.
I have the brain in my hands. So this thing is.
How much does it weigh?
Like 10 pounds. Maybe not 10 pounds. Isn't that like the biggest brain? But maybe this is maybe 5 to 8 pounds. I would just.
Yeah,
guess.
I think that's about right. About right.
It's amazing to me that everything is controlled by this everything that we think about is controlled by this. Here, Thomas.
You want to try to catch it, Thomas? There you go. Good catch.
There's your brain. That's it. That's where everything happens. It's amazing. Well, Kevin, I appreciate you coming up for our second podcast. We'll have you up again. I wanted to do this fresh off this great case that you had.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it.
I mean, it's and congratulations to you, and congratulations to your client, most importantly, because they're taken care of, and you did a great job for them. You did a great job for your referral source, for your friend Todd.
Yeah.
And so anybody else that's looking for somebody that they can depend on and trust with their cases, Kevin's your guy. And it doesn't really matter where they are, right? I mean, like, you practice in Virginia, but you can certainly consult with them and help them, and
yes,
they could do your brain injury litigation system wherever they are.
Yeah, and I am trying to build a more national practice. Actually,
you're not trying.
Yeah,
you're actually doing.
We're working on that. We're working on that. Thank you. Yeah. You're always giving me that extra.
Well, you're doing it.
Yeah, we are doing it. We are doing it. And and so yes, that's true. And I told you I got this call from the guy in Florida, for example, and I've had other leads, if you will, come to me through my website from Florida,
sure,
as an example. So,
but they're coming to you, and I want to be clear because I made this point. This is not a search. None of those cases came to you through some search term for brain injury lawyer. So that's right.
Well, I don't know. The one that I mentioned earlier that came to me from Florida, I think that guy actually got online and started looking for brain injury lawyers.
But didn't he type your name?
No.
Really?
No, didn't type my name. He just
maybe we're gonna have to edit that out, Thomas.
That may be one exception, but generally,
just kidding.
Generally,
we'll keep it in. Good.
Yeah, generally the answer is yes.
But we're going to be paying much closer attention to that because everybody assumes wrongly that all their cases are coming through page one for whatever.
Right.
But the reality is that most of their cases, their best cases, are coming through referral. Everybody can agree with this based on your name.
Yes.
And your own brain search.
That's true, and I think that's the most important thing when you're.
Yeah, I'm not saying the other stuff isn't important.
Yeah.
But people, all businesses, they place too much importance on that and not enough on their own list.
Well, what I've noticed in recent years is that when I started with you, which I think was in 2013 or 14, when you went on Google and you typed something in and you got results, there weren't all these ads at the top.
Yeah.
And now when you do it, you do have to deal with that. Mm-hmm. And so to your point, being on the first page of Google.
And those ads are incredibly expensive for this particular area of law.
Right.
And they are not providing what the people selling them actually provide.
Yeah, and you and I have learned that as consumers,
yes,
right? I mean, when I go search for something on Google, for example, this morning I was Googling your address. Okay, so I Googled Foster Web Marketing, and the first three things that came up were ads, and then I scrolled down and found
for my competitors.
No, they were actually well, maybe a couple of them were.
Yeah.
But maybe one of them was your ad. I think that was the first one. But I was like, I'm not going to click on that ad.
Yeah, Tom will have to spend 50 cents on that.
Yeah, so I scrolled down and found the real Tom Foster.
Yeah, organic, right?
Yeah, just so I could find the address. And I think consumers get smart that way. When they go search for something, I've almost gotten to the point where when I search for something on Google, I avoid the first few options because they're ads, and I just go to the real thing. And so it's funny how what you do in your business, Tom, has changed over the years, but you're good about keeping up with it.
Yeah, I mean, thank you.
Every year.
As a matter of fact, speaking of keeping up with it, just on that, we're going back and editing or updating the 5 biggest mistakes. And the first chapter is all about buying keywords, and you will be blown away about that because there's some really good stuff in there coming out soon.
I can't wait to read that.
And so on that note, because we just talked about this, you're writing a book, The 5 Biggest Mistakes All Lawyers Make When They Refer Out.
Yes.
That's the working title, gang.
That is the working title.
But that's going to be coming out here in the next few months, along with your other litigation system.
And it's hard for me to pick the top 5, but I'm going to do my best to pick the top 5.
We'll help. You know what they are.
Yeah, referring cases out. I mean, I think some lawyers just want to get the thing off their desk as quickly as possible, but they also, if they really thought about it, want to get it in the best hands possible.
Or some of them just don't do anything at all, and they're just like, we don't do that, or that's not our area, and then they just let that person go back out to the web or wherever they go, and they lose the opportunity to make a nice referral fee.
Yes, and the way I treat my referral sources actually too is I keep them in the loop. For example, on this big case we just had, we focus group that case to not model juries, but we pick people from the community to serve as focus group jurors, and we test cases, and that's something we routinely do. Another big expense in these cases, but with the focus groups, I like to bring the referring lawyer in and show him what the
that's cool. So you keep them involved.
Yeah, show, in this case, him what the focus groups are thinking of the case he referred to me. And I do that for a couple of reasons. Number one, I want their insight, the referring lawyer's insight. I'd like their insight on what's going on.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'd also.
Is the client there too usually?
No. I never include the clients, but I will share with the clients later what the focus group is saying about their case. And so I'll include the referring lawyer. I want his or her perspective. I want them to see how hard I'm working. And I want them to also understand realistically what the case is worth, what the risks are that I'm dealing with in the case. And those focus groups do a great job of putting their finger right on those risks. They go right to the heart of what's wrong with your case. So that gives you just a flavor of how I deal with my referring lawyers. I keep them in the loop.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Kevin, once again, thank you. Thank you for your good service. Thanks for being a client of ours for as long as you have and sticking around. And we're really excited about what we're going to be working on in the next few years with you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Stay tuned, everybody, and watch Kevin's rise, because he's really doing well and taking off. And if you want your cases to be done excellently, then Kevin's your guy.
Thanks a lot.
Right. Thanks, Kevin.
All right, Tom.
So I am Tom Foster, everyone, from the World of Marketing, episode 24, with my buddy Kevin Mottley, the 7-figure man. Hey, that's what I'm going to call you.
Okay.
The 7-figure man. $7 million man. Actually, it was more than that.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thomas.